In tonight's news edition, the Prime Minister lays the foundation stone of the new Amman Customs Center in eastern Amman. As the Iraqi army starts its offensive to retake West Mosul, a UN refugee agency opens new camps to receive thousands of displaced Iraqis. And Britain is to launch its divorce proceedings with the European Union on March 29th. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Majesty the King will begin a working visit to Morocco this Wednesday upon an invitation from Moroccan King Mohammed VI. The two monarchs are scheduled to discuss ways to further enhance Jordanian-Moroccan ties, as well as the latest developments in the region. His Majesty is also scheduled to meet a number of senior Moroccan officials. Deputizing for His Majesty the King, Prime Minister Hani al-Mulki laid the foundation stone of the new Amman Customs Center in Madoun area in eastern Amman. The 93 million dinar strategic venture that will be financed by the Social Security Investment Fund will be implemented in partnership with the private sector. In remarks during the ceremony, al-Mulki said the project, extending over an area of 1,350 dunams, will encourage investment in eastern Amman and will ease the pressure on traffic in the area. The new center will include buildings for custom equipment in addition to clearance and private sector companies. Minister of Public Works and Housing, Sami Halaseh, said the center will be built in accordance with international standards using modern technology and designs drawn up by the Public Works Ministry. Iraqi helicopters fired missiles and machine guns at Daesh positions in different districts of Mosul. The Iraqi army's offensive to drive Daesh out of their last major stronghold in the country has confined the terrorists to about half of the western side. The number of displaced people from both sides of the city since the start of the campaign has reached 355,000. A UN refugee agency has opened a new camp that filled up within a week and is building another in Hammam al-Alil, which is expected to receive thousands of refugees as fighting intensifies.
Iraqi coalition forces are on the move, this time pushing into western Mosul, the heart of Islamic State territory in Iraq, a new offensive after months of fighting in the city's east. Hundreds of troops in tanks and armored vehicles, backed by air power, set off for the operation early on Sunday, wresting control of several villages and a local power distribution station at the offset of the battle, paving the way for troops to move towards Mosul's airport, the first target of a ground offensive that officials admit will be a tough fight. Iraqi Prime Minister announcing the start of the battle in a televised speech, asking Iraqi forces to respect human rights during the battle.
We call on our brave troops to start the push to liberate the rest of the city and to liberate people from the oppression and terrorism of Islamic State, taking care of people and dealing with them in a humanitarian way and providing all the necessary requirements for the displaced people as you did before, you brave fighters.
On Saturday, Iraqi planes dropped millions of leaflets to warn residents of the imminent battle. Humanitarian organizations have voiced concern about the thousands that will be trapped. Up to 400,000 civilians could be displaced by the offensive, while residents suffer food and fuel shortages. And those armored vehicles will find it difficult to navigate through its narrow streets and dense population. Defeat in Mosul would be a huge loss for Islamic State. It's Iraq's second largest city and the de facto capital of the militants' self-declared caliphate.
Intense clashes took place in Damascus as the army counterattacked rebels who had advanced in the northeast of the Syrian capital. A Syrian military source said that the army recaptured all the positions it had lost yesterday. The army's advance involved heavy fighting and intense airstrikes. A British-based war monitor said heavy fighting continued and that the army had unleashed more than 500 air raids and artillery strikes. The intensity of the Syrian army's counterattack forced the rebels to retreat from at least 60% of the areas they captured in an industrial area that separated Qaboun from Jabar. Rebels still hold a large, heavily populated enclave in the eastern Ghouta district, as well as some Damascus districts in the south, east, and northeast of the city. The Turkish military hit 18 Daesh targets in the strategic town of Al-Bab in northern Syria. The military said 6 buildings, a weaponry depot, and a car carrying weapons were destroyed in the airstrikes. Last week, Turkey's military said it was close to taking Syria's Al-Bab from terrorist group, but a war monitor said the group still controlled 90% of the town. As refugees are fleeing from South Sudan's violence, Uganda currently faces the largest refugee crisis in Africa. A Uganda country representative from the Lutheran World Federation said there was complete lack of international attention on the unfolding humanitarian crisis. Here's more.
New trucks are arriving every day in Moyo, Uganda, each one bringing more refugees from South Sudan. Women carrying children and not much else. They're part of the 1.5 million people fleeing South Sudan's civil war, seeking safety in neighboring countries. Uganda now hosts some 740,000 refugees, most of whom have come since last year, says Lutheran World Federation's Jesse Comstra.
And in this year alone, in the first 6 weeks, we've seen over 100,000 people that have arrived in Uganda. So all resources for all agencies are stretched to the absolute max.
Though Uganda is recognized for progressive refugee and asylum policies, officials say their transit and reception centers can only hold so many refugees. Many new arrivals resort to sleeping wherever there is space. Rachel Makisa fled from Ye County in southwestern South Sudan. She doubts she'll be able to return.
Right now, I don't have a hope for our country because there is fighting taking place in our place, and right now I don't know what exactly, so I don't have a hope for my life.
It's a reality many of these refugees face, and a reality likely to continue, says Comstra.
I don't know how many more thousands have to come and flee or die before the international community wakes up and realizes what's happening here on the ground.
A stark warning from on the ground of Africa's largest refugee crisis.
British Prime Minister Theresa May will start Britain's divorce proceedings with the European Union on March 29th. May's government said her permanent envoy to the EU had informed European Council President Donald Tusk of the date when Britain intends to invoke Article 50 of its Lisbon Treaty. The EU said it was ready to begin the negotiations within 48 hours of the set date. However, Tusk is expected to send the other 27 member states his draft negotiating guidelines, which means that talks could start in May.
Well, I'm very clear that I want to ensure we get the best possible deal for the United Kingdom that works for everyone across the United Kingdom and all parts of the UK when we enter these negotiations. I've set out my objectives. Those include getting a good free trade deal. They include putting issues like our continuing working together on issues like security as at the core of what we're doing. We're going to be out there negotiating hard, delivering on what the British people voted for.
European Union Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini expressed concern over the Trump administration's proposed cuts in U.S. foreign aid. Speaking at an international nuclear policy conference, Mogherini said a significant reduction in U.S. foreign assistance would destabilize major parts of the world and hurt the United States' own security.
I was particularly worried to see the news coming from Washington on the budget cuts. I know this is internal, domestic, but I was the day before yesterday in Cairo for meetings with the Arab League. The previous day I was in Addis Ababa for meetings with the African Union. If the United States were to reduce significantly its investments, being it on humanitarian development aid, peace and security operations, the world and certain regions of the world would get completely destabilized. Don't forget that the major Syrian refugee crisis a couple of years ago started because the World Food Programme was underfunded. I hope there's wisdom enough here to keep in mind that investing in America means also investing in places that are far away. It's your own interest.
FBI Director James Comey said that neither the Department of Justice nor his own agency had evidence to support a claim by U.S. President Donald Trump that his Trump Tower headquarters had been wiretapped during the 2016 election campaign. Trump created a controversy in early March when he tweeted, without giving evidence, that former President Barack Obama's administration had wiretapped Trump Tower in New York. At the same hearing, Admiral Mike Rogers, the director of the National Security Agency, said there was no evidence British intelligence were involved in wiretapping in response to another claim Trump made on Twitter. If you're running out of ideas for the perfect Mother's Day gift and money is no object, then look no further. A 59.6-carat diamond known as the Pink Star is returning to auction next month and could fetch a record of $60 million. The diamond was presented by Sotheby's in London ahead of the auction in Hong Kong on April 4th. In 2013, a Geneva auction of the stone fetched a world record of $83 million, but the buyer, New York-based diamond cutter Isaac Wolf, could not pay up and defaulted. However, after the successful auction of colored diamonds in recent years, the auction house said that now was a good time to try again. The Pink Star is now said to be the most valuable polished diamond ever offered at auction.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sensational stone. It's the largest known vivid pink diamond in the world. It comes with a letter from the GIA, who, GIA, the Gemological Institute of America, are the main graders in the world of coloured diamonds and white diamonds. And according to them, it's the largest they've ever graded, at 59.6 carats. It's huge. It's also internally flawless, so it sort of ticks all the boxes. It's vivid pink is the highest possible colour grading for a coloured diamond, coloured pink diamond. And so it's, I mean, you saw it earlier, I'm sure. It's a sensational stone. I mean, nobody can take their eyes off it.
And from the world of jewelry to the world of fashion, Mulberry presented an equestrian-inspired collection during the third day of the London Fashion Week. Quilted capes, blouses with knotted neck scarves, and asymmetric skirts caught the attention of the guests. Creative director Johnny Coca took inspiration from the British aristocracy countryside life, showcasing tweeds, lace, and embroidery in his design. Models wore crochet and ruffled dresses made to look like old heirlooms. Roger Federer said that the dream run continues after he won the BNP Paribas event in Indian Wells, United States. Federer's 6-4, 7-5 win over fellow Swiss Stanislas Wawrinka was a big surprise to the 35-year-old, who has now moved up to 6th in the world ranking, well ahead of his own expectations. Federer is now heading to the Miami Open, where he last won the title in 2006. Tossing around tennis balls and swinging makeshift bats, the Palestinian women practicing on a soccer field are the vanguard of a sport new to the Gaza Strip, baseball. Their coach, Mahmoud Tafish, is introducing the game to the enclave and eventually hopes to form a national team to compete in Asian baseball championships. Tafish, who played for the Palestinian national soccer team for 16 years, trained as a baseball coach in Egypt. He has recruited 40 women and 20 men many of them university students, to learn the sport in facilities he rents at his own expense. And finally, it will be cold tonight in most regions, but relatively cold in the Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea. Tomorrow, a rise in temperature is expected, with spring weather in the hilly areas, Badia and plains. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect warm conditions tomorrow, with moderate winds and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. The Prime Minister lays the foundation stone of the new Amman Customs Center in eastern Amman. As the Iraqi army starts its offensive to retake West Mosul, a UN refugee agency opens new camps to receive thousands of displaced Iraqis. And Britain is to launch its divorce proceedings with the European Union on March 29th. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching and have a good night.